The unseen signals our brains. What if your deepest thoughts aren't entirely your own? Right now, as you're watching this, your brain is doing something extraordinary, something you're completely unaware of. It's picking up signals from the people around you. Subtle frequencies, chemical messages, electromagnetic patterns, and it's sending its own signals back. You think you're an individual consciousness, sealed off inside your skull. But what if that's an illusion? What if your brain is constantly whispering to other brains, sharing information below the threshold of your awareness? What if the boundary between your mind and someone else's is far more permeable than you ever imagined? Tonight, we're not talking about supernatural telepathy. We're talking about something far more profound. The scientific evidence that suggests we're already exchanging information unconsciously, that our brains are wired to connect in ways that blur the line between you and me. This isn't science fiction. This is cutting-edge neuroscience. And by the end of this video, you'll never think about your own mind the same way again. Part 1. The silent language of shared experience. Let me start with a question. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately sensed tension, even though no one said a word? Have you ever felt someone staring at you from across a space, turned around, and locked eyes with them? Have you ever finished someone's sentence, not because you were trying to, but because somehow you just knew what they were about to say? Most people have had these experiences. We usually dismiss them as intuition, empathy, or lucky guesses. But what if they're evidence of something deeper? The phenomenon of unspoken knowing. Think about the last time you were with someone you're close to. Maybe a partner, a best friend, a parent. You were having a conversation, and suddenly you both said the same thing at the exact same time. Or you reached for something and they handed it to you before you asked. Or you looked at each other and burst out laughing at the same private joke without anyone speaking. These moments feel magical. They feel like proof that minds can connect beyond words. But here's what's really happening. Your brains are synchronizing. They're exchanging information through channels you're not consciously aware of. Micro-expressions, breathing patterns, body temperature, pheromones, electromagnetic fields generated by neural activity. You're not reading each other's minds in the psychic sense, but you are reading each other in ways far more sophisticated than conscious language allows. The starring detection phenomenon. Let's go back to that feeling of being watched. Scientists have studied this for decades, and the results are fascinating. Rupert Sheldrake conducted experiments where people were randomly stared at from behind, either through windows or via closed-circuit cameras. Participants, who couldn't see their watchers, had to guess when they were being observed. Results varied, but many studies showed hit rates significantly above chance. Some researchers dismissed this as artifacts or methodological flaws. Others found it compelling enough to warrant further investigation. More recent research has focused on physiological responses. When you feel watched, your skin conductance changes. Your heart rate varies. These are unconscious responses that happen before you consciously decide someone is looking at you. One theory: humans evolved to detect attention because being watched could mean either social opportunity or danger. Those who developed sensitivity to being observed had survival advantages. But how? What's the mechanism? Some researchers propose that we pick up on subtle environmental cues, sounds, air movement, peripheral vision signals. Others suggest there might be electromagnetic or quantum-level information exchange that we don't yet understand. The truth is, we don't fully know, but the phenomenon is real enough that it's been documented across cultures and throughout history. Finishing each other's sentences. This is even more interesting, because it happens so frequently between people who spend significant time together. When you finish someone's sentence, here's what's actually occurring. Your brain has built a predictive model of how this person thinks and speaks. You've internalized their patterns, their vocabulary, their logical progressions, their emotional rhythms. Your brain runs simulations in the background, constantly predicting what they'll say next. Sometimes you're wrong, but with people you know well, you're right surprisingly often. But there's more to it than prediction. Research shows that during conversations, your brain waves actually start to synchronize with the person you're talking to. You're not just predicting their thoughts, you're literally thinking in rhythm with them. The convergence of thought. Here's an experiment you can try. Sit with a close friend and both write down the first word that comes to mind. Don't communicate, just write. If you do this enough times, you'll notice something strange. You'll often write the same word or words that are closely related. Why? Because you've been exposed to similar stimuli recently. You're in the same environment. Your brains are processing similar sensory information. And on some level, without realizing it, you're picking up on each other's microcues, a glance at something in the room, a slight change in posture, a barely perceptible shift in breathing. Your brains are exchanging information constantly. You just don't notice because it happens below the threshold of conscious awareness. What this really means. What we're talking about here isn't supernatural. It's biological. It's the result of millions of years of evolution shaping human brains to be exquisitely sensitive to social information. We are, fundamentally, a social species. Our survival depended on our ability to cooperate, coordinate, and understand each other. So our brains developed systems for exchanging information that go far beyond language. Language is actually a relatively recent invention in evolutionary terms. For the vast majority of human history, we communicated through gesture, tone, facial expression, and something even more subtle, direct nervous system-to-nervous system signaling. These ancient communication channels didn't disappear when we developed language. They're still there, operating in the background, exchanging information every moment of every day. You are already telepathic, not in the Hollywood sense, but in a very real biological sense. And we're only beginning to understand how it works. Part 2, the neuroscience of mirroring. Now let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain when you connect with another person, because the neuroscience here is absolutely stunning. The discovery of mirror neurons. In the early 1990s, a team of Italian neuroscientists led by Giacomo Rizzolatti was studying the motor cortex of macaque monkeys. They were mapping which neurons fired when the monkeys performed specific actions, reaching for food, grabbing objects, bringing things to their mouth. One day, a researcher reached for a peanut while a monkey was watching. Suddenly, the monkey's neurons fired, the exact same neurons that would fire if the monkey itself had reached for the peanut. The monkey's brain was simulating the researcher's action internally. They called these mirror neurons, and the discovery revolutionized neuroscience. Humans have mirror neurons too. In fact, we have a highly developed mirror neuron system that's far more sophisticated than what's found in other primates. How mirror neurons work. Here's what happens when you watch someone perform an action. The visual information travels from your eyes to your visual cortex. From there, it goes to your parietal lobe, which processes spatial information and movement. Then it activates your motor cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning and executing movements. But here's the key. These motor neurons fire even though you're not actually moving. Your brain is internally simulating the action you're observing. This is how you understand what someone is doing, not just by seeing it, but by experiencing it internally in your own motor system. But it goes further than that. Mirror neurons don't just fire for actions. They fire for intentions. If you see someone reach for a glass, your mirror neurons fire differently depending on whether you perceive they're reaching to drink or to clear the table. Your brain automatically infers intention and simulates it internally. And they fire for emotions too. When you see someone in pain, your pain centers activate. When you see someone smile, your facial muscles subtly engage, even if you don't consciously smile. When you watch someone cry, your brain activates the same neural circuits that would fire if you were crying. This is the biological basis of empathy. You literally feel what others feel because your brain is mirroring their internal states. The implications for telepathy. Think about what this means. When you're with another person, your brain is constantly simulating their internal experience. You're not just observing them from the outside. You're recreating their mental and emotional states inside your own neural circuitry. Is this telepathy? It depends on how you define it. You're not accessing their thoughts directly, but you are accessing information about their internal state, their intentions, their emotions, their planned actions, without them consciously communicating it to you. You're reading them, not their words, them. Physiological synchrony, when bodies align. But mirror neurons are just the beginning, because when people interact, something even stranger happens. Their bodies start to synchronize. Researchers have documented this across dozens of studies. When you have a conversation with someone, your heart rates begin to align. Not perfectly, but they start moving in coordinated patterns, rising and falling together. Your breathing synchronizes. Watch two people in deep conversation, their chests rise and fall in rhythm. Your skin conductance patterns align. The electrical conductivity of your skin, which reflects emotional arousal, starts to mirror the other person's. Even your pupil dilation synchronizes. When one person's pupils dilate, the others follow, milliseconds later. This happens automatically. You have no conscious control over it. Your nervous systems are communicating directly, below the level of awareness. Brain-to-brain coupling, minds in sync. Now we get to the really extraordinary stuff. In 2010, Princeton neuroscientist Yuri Hassan conducted an experiment using fMRI brain scanners. He had one person tell a story while being scanned. Then he played a recording of that story to other people while scanning their brains. What he found was astonishing. The brain activity patterns of the listeners began to mirror the brain activity patterns of the storyteller. Not just in language processing areas, but across wide regions of the brain. When the storyteller's visual cortex activated while describing a scene, the listener's visual cortex activated. When the storyteller's emotional centers engaged, the listener's emotional centers engaged. Their brains were synchronizing, running the same neural programs at the same time. Hassan called this brain-to-brain coupling, and it's been replicated in dozens of studies since. When two people are engaged in shared attention, watching the same movie, listening to the same music, working on the same problem, their brain wave patterns align. The more aligned their brains, the better they understand each other and the more successful their collaboration. This isn't metaphorical. Their neurons are literally firing in coordinated patterns. The mechanism, how does this happen? The question is, how? How does information transfer from one brain to another, causing neural synchronization? The conventional explanation is that both brains are processing the same external stimuli. You're watching the same movie, so naturally your visual cortex activates in similar patterns. But the synchronization goes beyond what can be explained by shared input alone. Studies show that speakers' and listeners' brains synchronize even when discussing abstract concepts. Couples' brain waves align even when they're not speaking, just sitting together in comfortable silence. There's something more happening here. The multi-channel communication hypothesis. Here's what researchers are starting to realize. Human communication is multi-channel. You think communication happens through language, but language is actually just one narrow channel. The real communication is happening through prosody, the rhythm, stress, and intonation of speech. Microexpressions, facial movements lasting less than a second. Body language, posture, gesture, movement. Gaze patterns, where and when you look. Breathing and heart rate signals, subtle but detectable. Pheromones, chemical signals we unconsciously detect. Electromagnetic fields, your heart and brain generate these. Quantum-level information, speculative but possible. All these channels are operating simultaneously, below conscious awareness, exchanging massive amounts of information. Your conscious mind focuses on the words being spoken, but your unconscious is processing everything else, and that everything else contains far more information than the words do. Implications for the self. Here's where it gets philosophically profound. If your brain is constantly mirroring others' internal states, constantly synchronizing with the brains around you, where does you end and they begin? The boundary you think exists between your mind and other minds might be far less solid than it appears. When you're deeply connected with someone, in conversation, in collaboration, in intimacy, your brains actually merge to a degree. You become, temporarily, a single cognitive system distributed across two nervous systems. This is why losing someone you love hurts so much. You're not just losing them. You're losing a part of your extended neural network. You're losing circuits of thought and feeling that existed between you. Later in this video, I'll show you research that suggests this synchronization goes even further than mirror neurons and brain coupling. But first, let me tell you about the invisible threads that bind minds together, the chemical and electromagnetic signals we're only beginning to understand. Part 3. Beyond empathy, the invisible threads. We've talked about mirror neurons and brain synchronization. But there are other forms of information exchange happening that are even more subtle, even more unconscious, and potentially even more powerful. Pheromones, the chemical language. You probably know that animals communicate through pheromones, chemical signals that trigger specific behaviors. What you might not know is that humans do too. For decades, scientists debated whether humans even have a functional vomeronasal organ, the structure that detects pheromones in other mammals. The consensus now is that we might not have that specific organ, but we still detect chemical signals through regular olfactory receptors. And these signals influence us profoundly. The menstrual synchrony phenomenon. One of the most famous examples is menstrual synchrony. Women who live together, roommates, close friends, family members, often find that their menstrual cycles align over time. The original research, published in 1971 by Martha McClintock, suggested this happened through pheromonal communication. Later studies have been mixed, with some replicating the effect and others failing to find it. But here's what we know for certain. Chemical signals do influence reproductive physiology. Men exposed to women's ovulatory pheromones show increased testosterone. Women exposed to male sweat show changes in mood and hormone levels. These aren't conscious effects. You don't smell something and think, my hormones should change now. It happens automatically below awareness. Fear and anxiety transmission. More disturbing, fear is chemically contagious. In studies, researchers collected sweat from people experiencing fear or anxiety, some watching horror films, others about to give speeches or take tests. Then they exposed other people to these sweat samples without telling them what they were smelling. The results were consistent. People exposed to fear sweat showed increased anxiety, heightened vigilance, and activation of brain regions associated with threat detection. They caught fear, chemically, unconsciously. This makes evolutionary sense. If someone in your group is terrified, you need to be alert too, even if you haven't seen the threat yet. Chemical communication of danger would have massive survival value. But think about the implications. When you're anxious, you're not just feeling it internally. You're broadcasting it chemically. And people around you are picking it up, whether they realize it or not. Happiness and calm are contagious too. The good news, positive emotional states spread the same way. People exposed to sweat from happy, relaxed individuals show decreased stress and improved mood. Mothers and infants exchange chemical signals that regulate each other's emotional states. You are constantly bathing in the chemical signals of people around you, and they're shaping your mood, your physiology, your emotional state. You think your feelings are private, internal, but they're not. They're being communicated unconsciously to everyone in your vicinity. Electromagnetic fields, the body's radio signals. Now let's talk about something even stranger, electromagnetic fields. Your heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in your body. It's about 100 times stronger than your brain's field, and it extends several feet outside your body in all directions. This isn't speculation. It's measurable. You can detect another person's heartbeat in your own brain waves if you're standing close enough. The HeartMath Institute has conducted extensive research on this. They've shown that when people are in close proximity, their electromagnetic fields interact. The heart rhythms of one person can be detected in the brain waves of another. In one study, they showed that when couples hold hands, their heart rhythms synchronize. But even without touching, even just sitting near each other, their electromagnetic fields influence each other. The implications. Think about what this means. You are not electromagnetically isolated. Your heart is constantly broadcasting a signal, and other people's hearts are constantly broadcasting signals that your brain is detecting. You walk into a room full of people, and before anyone speaks, before you consciously assess anything, your brain is already picking up on the collective electromagnetic field generated by all those nervous systems. Is this why you can feel the energy of a room? Is this why some spaces feel calm and others feel agitated? Maybe it's not metaphorical. Maybe you're literally detecting the collective electromagnetic state of the human nervous systems around you. Shared attention and the we space. Let's talk about something researchers call joint attention or shared intentionality. When two people focus on the same object, the same idea, the same goal, something remarkable happens in their brains. They create what philosopher Dan Zahavi calls a we space, a shared cognitive territory that exists between them. This has been documented in multiple studies. When jazz musicians improvise together, their brains synchronize far more than when they play separately. The boundaries between individual minds blur. The music emerges from a space between them. When teachers and students are engaged in learning, their brain waves couple. The better the coupling, the better the learning outcomes. When lovers gaze into each other's eyes, their brain activity patterns align in ways that don't happen when looking at strangers. The loss of individual thought. Here's what's profound about this. During these moments of deep synchrony, the sense of being a separate individual actually decreases. People report feeling merged with others, not metaphorically. They describe a genuine dissolution of boundaries where they can't tell where their thoughts end and the other person's begin. This is what athletes call being in the zone or flow state when playing team sports. This is what musicians describe when a performance transcends individual effort. This is what lovers experience in moments of deep intimacy. The illusion of the separate self temporarily breaks down. And brain scans confirm it. During these moments, the neural signatures of self versus other diminish. Your brain stops treating the other person as separate from you. Collective intelligence, when groups think as one. This brings us to collective intelligence, the phenomenon where groups solve problems that no individual member could solve alone. We usually think of this as division of labor. Different people contribute different skills and knowledge. But there's something more happening. Studies show that groups whose members' brains synchronize more strongly perform better on complex tasks. The synchronization isn't just correlation, it's causation. When you artificially enhance brain synchronization between group members, using neurofeedback or other techniques, performance improves. It's as if the group is functioning as a single, distributed cognitive system. Information is flowing between members through unconscious channels. Ideas are emerging that no single person consciously generated. This is why brainstorming works best in person rather than remotely. Yes, you can share ideas over video, but you lose the subtle synchronization, the unconscious information exchange, the collective cognitive space that emerges from shared physical presence. The quantum hypothesis. Some researchers have proposed that consciousness might have quantum properties that allow for non-local information transfer, information exchange that doesn't require physical proximity or electromagnetic signals. This is highly speculative and controversial. Most neuroscientists dismiss it, but a small number of physicists and consciousness researchers take it seriously. The idea is this: if quantum entanglement can link particles across space instantaneously, And if aspects of neural processing involve quantum effects, as Roger Penrose and others have proposed, then perhaps minds can become entangled too. There's no solid evidence for this yet, but the fact that serious scientists are asking the question tells you how mysterious consciousness remains. The web of unconscious connection. Here's what we know for certain. You are not an isolated consciousness. You are embedded in a web of chemical, electromagnetic, and informational connections with every nervous system around you. Your thoughts aren't entirely your own. They're influenced by the pheromones you're inhaling, the electromagnetic fields you're immersed in, the mirror neuron activation happening as you observe others, the synchronization occurring as you interact. The boundary between self and other is not a wall. It's a permeable membrane. Information flows across it constantly, in both directions, mostly below conscious awareness. You are already telepathic, not in the sense of reading specific thoughts, but in the sense of constantly exchanging emotional, intentional, and physiological information without conscious communication. Later, I'll show you how you can enhance these natural abilities. But first, let me show you the research that proves our brains actually connect in real time during shared experiences, research that's redefining what we mean by individual mind. Part 4. The proof, when science measured shared minds. We've talked about mechanisms, mirror neurons, synchronization, chemical signals. But let's look at the actual experiments that proved our brains exchange information in ways that challenge our understanding of individual consciousness. The speaker-listener brain coupling experiments. Let's return to Uri Hassan's groundbreaking research at Princeton, because the implications go even further than I mentioned earlier. In his most famous study, Hassan recorded a woman telling a 15-minute unrehearsed story about her high school prom. As she spoke, her brain was scanned using fMRI. Then, listeners heard the recording while their brains were scanned. The results: the listener's brain patterns closely mirrored the speaker's patterns. But here's what's remarkable. The coupling wasn't just in language areas. It extended to brain regions involved in emotion, social processing, and even future planning. Most astonishing, in some brain regions, the listener's activity actually preceded the speaker's. The listener's brain was predicting what the speaker would say next, and this prediction showed up as neural activity before the speaker actually said it. When listeners understood the story well, the coupling was strong. When comprehension was poor, coupling was weak. Hassan concluded, communication is not just about producing and comprehending language. It's about producing a shared neural representation, a meeting of minds. The boundary between minds had blurred. During successful communication, two brains were functioning as a single coupled system. The music synchronization studies. If you think that's impressive, wait until you hear about what happens when people make music together. Researchers at the Max Planck Institute scanned the brains of guitarists playing duets. When the musicians were playing in sync, their brain waves synchronized. But this didn't happen when they played the same music separately. The synchronization wasn't just about producing the same sounds. It was about the social coordination, the mutual adjustment, the shared intentionality, the playing together aspect. The better the musicians knew each other, the stronger the synchronization. But here's what's extraordinary. The synchronization happened in regions beyond motor control. It extended to areas involved in social cognition, empathy, and theory of mind, understanding others' mental states. The musicians weren't just coordinating their hands. They were coordinating their thoughts, predictions, and intentions in real time. The classroom brain coupling research. Susan Dicker at New York University conducted research in actual high school classrooms, tracking brain activity throughout an entire semester. Students and teachers wore portable EEG devices that recorded their brain waves during class. The question, does brain synchronization predict learning outcomes? The answer, absolutely. When students' brain waves synchronized more strongly with the teachers and with each other's, they retained more information, performed better on tests, and reported greater engagement. The effect was strongest during dynamic, interactive teaching. Lectures produced less synchronization than discussions. But here's what's fascinating. Students whose brains synchronized more with their classmates learned better, even controlling for the teacher's effect. The student-to-student brain coupling was independently predictive of learning. It's as if the classroom was functioning as a collective cognitive system, where information flowed not just from teacher to student, but between students through unconscious neural synchronization. The romantic couple studies. Pavel Goldstein at the University of Colorado studied romantic couples while one partner experienced pain. Couples sat together, sometimes holding hands, sometimes not. One partner's arm was subjected to mild heat pain while both partners' brains and heart rates were monitored. When the partner in pain was touched by their significant other, their pain decreased. This is known as analgesic touch that reduces pain. But the researchers found something more. The stronger the brain synchronization between partners, the greater the pain reduction. When their brain waves aligned, pain decreased more. The non-suffering partner's brain was somehow modulating the suffering partner's pain perception through synchronization. Touch facilitated this, but synchronization happened even without touch when partners were emotionally close. The emotional bond itself created neural coupling that had measurable physiological effects. The infant-parent synchronization. Perhaps the most profound synchronization happens between parents and infants. Ruth Feldman at Bar-Ilan University has spent decades studying parent-infant interaction. Her research shows that mothers' and infants' brain waves, heart rates, and hormone levels synchronize during interaction. When they make eye contact, their prefrontal cortex activity aligns. When they vocalize together, their temporal lobe activity couples. When they touch, their emotional brain regions synchronize. This synchronization is crucial for development. Infants whose brains synchronize more strongly with their caregivers show better emotional regulation, stronger social skills, and enhanced cognitive development years later. The parent-infant bond isn't just emotional, it's neurological. Two nervous systems forming a single regulatory system, with information flowing between them to shape the infant's developing brain. The meditation and group consciousness studies. When groups meditate together, something remarkable happens. EEG studies of meditation groups show that practitioners' brain waves synchronize far more than random groups of people sitting together. The synchronization increases with practice. Long-term meditators show stronger coupling. Some research has found that this synchronization extends beyond the meditation session. People who meditate together regularly begin to show baseline brain wave similarities, even when apart. Is this proof of group consciousness? Not exactly, but it suggests that repeated neural synchronization can create lasting changes in brain function, potentially establishing standing patterns of connection between individuals. The virtual reality, shared experience research. Recent studies have used virtual reality to create controlled shared experiences while monitoring brain activity. When people explore the same virtual environment together, their brains synchronize. But the synchronization is strongest when they collaborate toward shared goals, weakest when they simply happen to be in the same space. This suggests that the neural coupling isn't just about shared sensory input. It requires shared intentionality, joint attention, cooperative engagement. When minds align around common purpose, they literally merge, to a degree, into a single distributed cognitive system. What all this research means? Let's step back and look at the bigger picture. Across dozens of studies, using different methodologies, with different populations, in different contexts, researchers keep finding the same thing. Human brains synchronize during social interaction. This synchronization is real, measurable, and functionally significant. It predicts learning, performance, empathy, pain relief, relationship quality, and cognitive function. We are not isolated information processing systems. We are nodes in a network, constantly exchanging signals, constantly influencing each other's neural states. The old model of consciousness, each person is a separate mind, sealed off inside their skull, is false. The new model, consciousness exists not just within individuals but between them, in the space of interaction, in the patterns of synchronization, in the invisible threads of information exchange. You are, right now, part of a larger cognitive system that includes everyone you're physically near, everyone you're emotionally close to, everyone you're actively thinking about. Your thoughts are influenced by their thoughts. Their emotional states shape your emotional states. Your brain waves ripple outward, affecting others, while theirs ripple inward, affecting you. This is not mysticism. This is neuroscience. And it means we need to fundamentally rethink what we mean by individual mind. Part 5, the Telepathic Toolkit, Training Your Unconscious Senses. So if we're already exchanging information unconsciously, if our brains are already coupled with the brains around us, the question becomes, can we enhance this? Can we become more aware of these signals? Can we train ourselves to be better at this unconscious communication? The answer is yes. And you don't need any special equipment or supernatural abilities. You just need to pay attention differently. Active listening, the foundation. Most people don't actually listen. They wait for their turn to talk. While the other person is speaking, they're formulating their response, planning what they'll say next, thinking about something else entirely. This breaks synchronization. Your brain can't couple with theirs if you're not actually engaged with what they're saying. Active listening means full attention, put away your phone, stop planning your response, actually be present with the person in front of you. Sensory engagement, don't just hear their words. Notice their tone, their rhythm, their breathing. Watch their face, their hands, their posture. Take in the full signal, not just the verbal channel. Emotional resonance, allow yourself to feel what they're feeling. Don't just understand intellectually, let your mirror neurons do their work. Feel their emotions in your own body. Reflective responses, paraphrase back what you heard. This isn't just good communication practice. It's a way of confirming that synchronization happened, that your understanding matches their meaning. When you practice active listening, something happens in your brain. You stop generating internal noise. Your default mode network quiets. Your attention fully engages. And in that state, the subtle signals become clearer. You start noticing things you missed before. Micro-expressions that reveal hidden emotions. Vocal patterns that indicate uncertainty or conviction. Postural shifts that signal comfort or discomfort. You're not developing supernatural powers. You're just removing the interference that was blocking signals that were always there. Mindful observation, seeing what's actually there. Most of your perception is prediction. Your brain doesn't passively receive sensory input. It actively predicts what it expects to see, hear, and feel, then adjusts based on incoming data. This is efficient, but it means you often see what you expect rather than what's actually there. Mindfulness training teaches you to notice the difference. The body scan meditation. Systematically bring attention to each part of your body, noticing sensations without judgment. This trains you to perceive subtle physiological signals, the kind you might pick up from others if you were more sensitive. Open awareness meditation. Instead of focusing on one thing, let your attention rest openly, noticing whatever arises without attaching to it. This trains your brain to process information in parallel rather than sequentially, which is how unconscious synchronization works. Micro-expression training. Studies show you can train yourself to consciously detect micro-expressions, those fleeting facial movements that last less than a second and reveal genuine emotions people are trying to hide. Paul Ekman, who pioneered micro-expression research, developed training programs that improve detection accuracy from about 50% chance to over 80% with practice. This isn't telepathy in the paranormal sense, but it is reading emotional information that people aren't consciously communicating. The power of silence, creating space for subtlety. In conversation, we tend to fill every gap with words. Silence feels awkward, so we rush to fill it. But silence is where the deepest communication happens. When you're comfortable sitting in silence with someone, your nervous systems continue exchanging information even without words. In fact, the exchange often intensifies because the verbal channel is quiet. Your breathing synchronizes more. Your heart rates align more. Your brain waves couple more. Therapists know this. The best therapeutic breakthroughs often happen in silence, when the client isn't speaking but profound emotional processing is occurring. Try this. Next time you're with someone you're close to, sit in silence together for 5 minutes. Don't try to communicate anything, just be present. You'll find that afterwards, you feel more connected than you did before, even though no information was explicitly exchanged. The connection itself was the communication. Nonverbal communication mastery. Only about 7% of communication happens through words. The other 93% is tone, body language, facial expression, timing, and context. Yet most people focus almost entirely on the 7%. Training yourself to consciously attend to nonverbal signals dramatically increases the information you receive. Posture matching. Subtly mirror someone's posture during conversation. This isn't manipulation, it's facilitating the natural synchronization that happens between aligned minds. Research shows it increases rapport and understanding. Breathing awareness. Notice the other person's breathing pattern. Without forcing it, allow your breathing to naturally align with theirs. This creates physiological synchronization that deepens connection. Proxemics. Pay attention to physical distance. Everyone has different comfort zones. When you're attuned to spatial dynamics, you can sense when someone needs more space or is inviting more closeness, even if they never say so. Touch sensitivity. In appropriate contexts, touch is an incredibly rich information channel. A handshake, a pat on the back, a hug, these convey volumes about emotional state, intention, and relationship quality. All of these are forms of unconscious communication that you're already participating in. Training simply brings them closer to awareness, so you can engage with them more skillfully. Developing emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is often misunderstood as being nice or sensitive, but really, it's about information processing. It's the ability to accurately perceive emotional signals in yourself and others. Understand what those emotions mean and what caused them. Use emotional information to guide thinking and behavior. Regulate emotions in yourself and influence them in others. Every one of these skills enhances your ability to participate in the unconscious information exchange that's constantly happening. Self-awareness. You can't accurately read others' emotions if you're not aware of your own. Your brain uses your internal state as a reference point for interpreting others. If you're misreading yourself, you'll misread them. Emotional vocabulary. Most people have a limited emotional vocabulary. They feel good or bad, happy or sad. Developing a richer vocabulary, distinguishing between, say, contentment and excitement, or between anxiety and grief, gives you more precision in reading both yourself and others. Pattern recognition. The more relationships and social interactions you mindfully attend to, the better your brain gets at recognizing patterns. The subtle cues that signal specific emotional states, intentions, or relational dynamics. The people who seem almost telepathic in their ability to read others aren't accessing supernatural information. They've simply developed exceptional pattern recognition through years of attentive social engagement. The intention experiment. Here's a practice that directly engages with the idea of mental influence. Sit across from a partner. One person closes their eyes. The other person, at random intervals, either stares intently at the person with eyes closed or looks away. The person with eyes closed tries to detect when they're being stared at versus when they're not. Some studies have shown above-chance accuracy with this. Others haven't. But regardless of the experimental results, the practice itself trains attention to subtle sensations that might indicate social attention. You become more sensitive to that feeling of being watched. Whether it's a real signal or just heightened awareness of environmental cues, the sensitivity increases. The group coherence practice. This one requires several people. Sit in a circle. Everyone breathes together, synchronizing inhalation and exhalation. After a few minutes, someone introduces a silent intention, a feeling, an image, a thought, without communicating it verbally. After another minute of shared silence, everyone shares what they experienced. You'll be surprised how often there's convergence. Similar images, related feelings, thematically connected thoughts. Is this telepathy? Maybe. Or maybe it's just that brains in synchronized states naturally generate similar content. Either way, it demonstrates that something is being shared in the space between minds. The practical application. All of these techniques serve the same purpose. They train you to participate more consciously in the unconscious information exchange that's constantly happening. You're not developing new abilities. You're removing the interference, the mental noise, the distraction, the focus on verbal content only that prevents you from fully accessing abilities you already have. Because you are already telepathic in the biological sense. You're already exchanging information through chemical signals, electromagnetic fields, mirror neuron activation, and neural synchronization. The question isn't whether you can do it. The question is, how well are you doing it and can you improve? And the answer to the second question is always yes. Part 6, the future of connected minds. We've explored the evidence that our brains are already exchanging information unconsciously. We've looked at the mechanisms, mirror neurons, synchronization, chemical and electromagnetic signals. We've discussed how to enhance these natural capacities. Now let's talk about what this means for the future. Where is this research leading us? What does it mean for human connection, for technology, for society, for our understanding of consciousness itself? The implications for human connection. First, let's talk about what this research means for how we relate to each other. If our brains are constantly synchronizing, constantly exchanging information below conscious awareness, then every interaction matters far more than we realize. The person sitting next to you on the bus is influencing your brain state. The coworker in the next cubicle is affecting your mood through chemical signals. The stranger you make eye contact with in a coffee shop is briefly coupling their neural activity with yours. You are not separate from your environment. You are embedded in it, continuously shaped by it. This means toxic relationships have neurological consequences. When you're around someone who's chronically anxious, angry, or negative, your nervous system is constantly adapting to their state. Over time, this can reshape your baseline brain function. The bad vibes you feel aren't just metaphorical, they're measurable changes in your nervous system. Positive relationships are neurologically nourishing. Conversely, spending time with calm, loving, positive people literally changes your brain for the better. The synchronization that happens during healthy connection acts as a form of neural regulation, keeping your systems balanced. Social isolation is biologically harmful. When you're isolated, you lose access to the regulatory effects of neural synchronization. Your brain starts to dysregulate. This is why loneliness is associated with increased risk for virtually every disease. It's not just psychological, it's biological. Empathy is not optional. Your brain is wired to mirror others whether you want it to or not. The question isn't whether you'll empathize. The question is whether you'll do so consciously and skillfully or unconsciously and reactively. Technologies of connection. Now let's talk about where technology is heading. If brains can synchronize, if information can be exchanged unconsciously, the obvious next question is, can we enhance this artificially? The answer is yes, and it's already beginning. Neurofeedback and synchronization training. Systems already exist that monitor two people's brain waves in real time and provide feedback when they synchronize. This allows people to deliberately practice entering synchronized states, strengthening the capacity for neural coupling. Brain-computer interfaces, BCIs. Companies like Neuralink are developing implants that can read neural activity with high precision. Right now, these are aimed at helping paralyzed people control devices. But the long-term vision includes brain-to-brain interfaces, direct neural communication between individuals. Imagine being able to transmit not just words, but sensations, emotions, images, entire concepts directly from one brain to another, bypassing language entirely. This isn't science fiction. The technology is progressing rapidly. Transcranial stimulation. Techniques like transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, and transcranial direct current stimulation, TDCS, can influence brain activity externally. Researchers have demonstrated that you can synchronize two people's brains by stimulating them with coordinated patterns. This raises obvious ethical questions. Who controls the stimulation? What if someone synchronizes your brain without your consent? What if governments or corporations use these technologies for manipulation? The ethics of neural privacy. If our brains are constantly broadcasting signals, and if technology can increasingly read those signals, neural privacy becomes a critical concern. Right now, your thoughts are still private, but that's changing. Brain scanning technology is improving rapidly. Already, researchers can decode visual images from brain activity. If they scan your visual cortex while you're looking at something, they can reconstruct what you're seeing. They can identify specific memories being recalled. They can detect when you're lying with higher accuracy than polygraphs. They can predict decisions seconds before you consciously make them. As this technology advances, the question becomes, who owns your neural data? Can employers require brain scans? Can governments use them for security? Can marketers use them to detect your subconscious responses to ads? And if brains can be synchronized externally, can your thoughts be influenced without your awareness? These aren't hypothetical questions. They're becoming urgent as the technology develops. Collective intelligence amplification. On the positive side, understanding neural synchronization could allow us to dramatically enhance collective intelligence. Imagine a team working on a complex problem, all wearing EEG devices that monitor their brain activity. An AI system could detect when synchronization is high, indicating effective collaboration, versus low, indicating miscommunication or conflict. The system could provide real-time feedback, helping the team maintain optimal synchronization. It could identify which team configurations produce the best cognitive coupling. It could even suggest optimal team compositions based on brain synchronization patterns. This isn't manipulation, it's optimization, like a coach helping athletes perform better together. Universities are already researching these applications. The U.S. military is interested in using neural synchronization to improve team performance in high-stakes situations. The education revolution. Remember the research showing that brain synchronization predicts learning outcomes. Imagine classrooms where teachers can see, in real time, which students' brains are coupling with theirs and which aren't. They could adjust their teaching dynamically, trying different approaches until synchronization improves. Students could be given feedback about their attention and engagement not just based on behavior, but on neural activity. They could learn to deliberately enter states of high receptivity. Peer learning could be optimized by pairing students whose brains synchronize well together. This could revolutionize education, making learning more effective, more personalized, more grounded in neuroscience rather than tradition. The healthcare applications. We already know that touch and presence from loved ones reduces pain through neural synchronization. What if we could enhance this effect? Imagine a spouse sitting with a partner who's experiencing chronic pain. They both wear EEG devices that help them maximize brain synchronization. Research suggests this could significantly enhance the analgesic effect. For mental health, therapist-client brain synchronization could be monitored and optimized. Better synchronization might lead to better therapeutic outcomes. For addiction recovery, Group therapy synchronization could be measured and cultivated, potentially strengthening the peer support effects that are crucial for recovery. The philosophical implications. But let's zoom out and ask the bigger questions. If our brains are constantly synchronizing, if information flows between minds, if consciousness exists not just within but between individuals, what does this mean for our concept of self? Western philosophy and culture are built on radical individualism, the idea that you are a separate, autonomous agent, distinct from others. But the neuroscience doesn't support this. You are not separate, you are relational. Your mind doesn't exist in isolation, it exists in connection. Your thoughts are shaped by the thoughts of people around you. Your emotions are influenced by their emotions. Your brain activity is coupled with theirs. Where exactly does you and others begin? This isn't just a philosophical puzzle. It's a practical question with real implications. If minds are fundamentally connected, maybe moral responsibility is collective rather than individual. Maybe consciousness itself is a collective phenomenon that we've mistakenly individualized. Eastern philosophies have understood this for millennia. The Buddhist concept of no self, the Hindu idea of Brahman underlying all individual consciousness, the African philosophy of Ubuntu, I am because we are. Western science is finally catching up. The vision of human connection. Imagine a future where we recognize that harming others harms ourselves, not as moral philosophy but as neurological fact. Your suffering affects my nervous system. We are literally connected. We design spaces and societies that optimize for healthy synchronization. Cities, workplaces, schools built around facilitating positive neural coupling. We consciously cultivate relationships that support mutual regulation rather than dysregulation. We use technology not to replace human connection, but to deepen it, to make visible the invisible threads that already bind us. The warning. But there's a darker possibility too. If we don't carefully consider the ethics, this same science could be used for control. Synchronized masses easier to manipulate, neural privacy violated, individual autonomy eroded. The same technology that could enhance empathy could be weaponized to manufacture consent, to suppress dissent, to engineer conformity. This is why this research needs to be public, transparent, and subject to rigorous ethical oversight. The choice. We stand at a threshold. We're beginning to understand that consciousness is not confined to individual brains, that minds are not separate but interconnected, that information flows between us constantly through channels we're only beginning to map. How we use this knowledge will shape the future of human civilization. We can use it to deepen connection, enhance empathy, solve collective problems, and recognize our fundamental interdependence. Or we can use it for manipulation, control, and exploitation. The neuroscience doesn't determine which path we take. We do. Conclusion: you are not alone in your mind. Let me bring this all together. You think you're reading your own thoughts right now, but are you? Those thoughts are shaped by every conversation you've had today, every person you've been near, every chemical signal you've inhaled, every electromagnetic field you've moved through. Your neurons are firing in patterns that were influenced by the neural patterns of everyone you've synchronized with recently. You are not a lone consciousness, sealed in your skull. You are a node in a vast network of interconnected minds, constantly exchanging information through channels you're barely aware of. This isn't metaphor, it's measurable neuroscience. Your brain mirrors the internal states of people around you through mirror neurons. Your emotional state is influenced by their chemical signals. Your heart rhythm responds to their electromagnetic fields. Your brain waves synchronize with theirs during interaction. The boundary between you and them is far more permeable than you ever imagined. This is biological telepathy, not mind reading in the Hollywood sense, but genuine information exchange that happens below conscious awareness. And once you understand this, everything changes. You realize that every interaction matters. Every person you spend time with is reshaping your neural architecture. You realize that kindness isn't just morally good, it's biologically beneficial. When you help someone feel better, you literally improve your own nervous system through the synchronization that occurs. You realize that we are not separate organisms competing for resources. We are interconnected nodes in a larger system, dependent on each other for regulation, for meaning, for consciousness itself. The invitation. Tonight, try something. Sit with someone you care about. Turn off your phone. Put away distractions. Just be present with them. Don't try to read their thoughts. Don't try to do anything special. Just breathe together. Be together. Let your nervous systems do what they naturally do, synchronize. After 10 minutes, notice how you feel. You might feel more calm, more connected, more yourself, paradoxically, by being more connected to them. That's your brain working the way it was designed to work, in relationship, in synchrony, in the invisible web of connection that binds all conscious beings. The truth. You are not alone in your mind. You never have been. Every thought you've ever had was influenced by others. Every emotion you felt was shaped by the nervous systems around you. Every moment of consciousness existed in a field of connection, whether you knew it or not. This is not a loss of self. It's a discovery of what self actually is, not an isolated island, but a meeting point, an intersection, a place where countless influences converge. You are both individual and collective, both separate and connected, both autonomous and interdependent. And understanding this might be the most important realization we can have as a species. Because if we truly understood that harming others harms ourselves, not as moral philosophy, but as neurological reality, maybe we'd finally learn to live differently. Maybe we'd build societies around connection rather than isolation. Maybe we'd recognize that consciousness itself is something we share, something that exists between us as much as within us. The final question. So are we already telepathic? Yes, in ways far more profound and subtle than we ever imagined. Your brain is exchanging information with other brains right now, unconsciously, automatically, constantly. The question isn't whether it's happening. The question is, now that you know, what will you do with this understanding? Will you be more mindful of who you spend time with? Will you be more conscious of what signals you're broadcasting? Will you cultivate deeper connection, now that you understand how real and biological that connection is? The choice, as always, is yours. But you're not making it alone. You never have been. Before you go, let's take a moment together, just you and me, no more information, no more science, just presence. Take a deep breath in and let it out slowly. Feel the weight of your body wherever you're sitting or lying. Feel the surface supporting you. You're safe. You're here. You're present. Think about someone you love, someone whose presence makes you feel calm. Don't analyze it. Just bring them to mind. Feel them. Notice what happens in your body. Maybe your breathing slows. Maybe your shoulders soften. Maybe something in your chest relaxes. That's the connection we've been talking about. Even just thinking about them, your nervous system responds. Your brain remembers the synchronization you've shared. The invisible threads are still there, even across distance. You are never truly alone. Even now, in this quiet moment, you're part of something larger. The electromagnetic field of your heart is extending into the space around you. If there's anyone nearby, you're already influencing each other, gently, subtly, unconsciously. And that's beautiful, because it means that every moment of kindness you offer ripples outward in ways you can't see. Every time you bring calm instead of chaos, peace instead of stress, your nervous system is broadcasting that state to others. You are, in a very real sense, healing the world around you simply by regulating yourself. So take another breath, deep and slow. Let go of any tension you're holding, in your jaw, your shoulders, your forehead. You don't have to figure anything out right now. You don't have to do anything. You can just be. And in this being, you're connected to everyone who's ever felt this same peace. Everyone who's ever taken a moment to simply exist, without striving, without effort. We're all here together, breathing the same air, sharing the same consciousness that flows through all living things. The ancient mystics knew this. The quantum physicists are discovering it, and you, right now, are experiencing it. You are both a single point of awareness and part of an infinite field of consciousness. You are a wave in an ocean that has no beginning and no end. And that's not something to understand intellectually. It's something to feel, to rest into, to trust. So as we come to the close of this journey together, I want you to know something. The connection you felt during this video, that sense of being understood, of exploring mysteries together, of not being alone in your curiosity, that was real. Our minds synchronized at least a little. Through my words and your attention, through the screen and across space, something passed between us. And maybe that's the most beautiful proof of all that we've been talking about. You came here seeking answers about telepathy, and what you found is that you've been telepathic all along. Every meaningful conversation you've ever had, every moment of silent understanding, every time you felt truly seen by another person. That was your biological telepathy in action. So go forward from this knowing that you're part of something vast and beautiful. That your thoughts matter, not just to you, but to everyone you touch. That your presence, your calm, your kindness, your peace, is a gift you're giving to every nervous system you encounter. And tonight, as you drift off to sleep, know that somewhere, someone else who watched this is doing the same. Our minds briefly met in this shared space of curiosity and wonder. And maybe, just maybe, in the quantum field where consciousness lives, we're still connected. Still exploring together. Still wondering. Still here. Take one more deep breath with me. In and out. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your beautiful, curious mind. Thank you for being exactly who you are. Sleep well. And remember, you are never ever alone.